The elevator doors slid open onto the 42nd floor of Beacon Tech Tower, and for a second, Madeline Brooks forgot how to breathe. She had only come to drop off a box of old documents, nothing more. A simple errand, something harmless. But life rarely warned you before it broke you. The office looked exactly as she remembered. Glass walls polished like mirrors, sunlight spilling across sleek white desks, the hum of productivity vibrating in the air. But the energy felt wrong, colder, off. Then Madeline saw her, Lorelei West, standing in Madeline's old office, her sanctuary, the room she once built strategies in late into the night. Lorelei was laughing beside a man Madeline knew far too well, Evan, her husband. Her legs froze, her heartbeat hammered against her ribs. Lorelei leaned over Madeline's old desk, signing a stack of onboarding documents using the Mont Blanc pen Madeline had gifted Evan on their 3rd anniversary. The gesture looked intimate, practiced, stolen. A wave of dread crawled up Madeline's spine. Around them, employees clapped politely as someone said, "Welcome aboard, Director West." Director, Madeline's title, the role she had once poured her soul into before stepping down to support Evan's career. Evan wrapped an arm around Lorelei's waist, quick, subtle, but not subtle enough. Madeline felt the air rip from her lungs. Someone beside her whispered, "Isn't that the woman he recommended to replace the last strategist? The one who left suddenly?" Left. Suddenly. Like Madeline had simply evaporated. Madeline's fingers tightened around the box she was carrying until the cardboard bent. Her eyes stung, but no tears fell. Not here. Not where people still remembered her name, though apparently not her worth. Evan turned then, his face paled. Lorelei's smile sharpened. Madeline managed a whisper only she could hear. God, what did they do? And then Evan stepped toward her, slow, guilty, terrified. But before he could speak, Lorelei said something that made the entire office go silent. "Should I tell her, Evan? Or do you want to?" Madeline's pulse hammered as every pair of eyes in the open workspace shifted toward her. The fluorescent lights above buzzed like angry bees, harsh and unforgiving. She forced her feet to move, one step, then another, while Evan stood frozen, guilt written across every line of his face. Lorelei, however, looked delighted. She tapped the Mont Blanc pen against Madeline's old desk, tilting her head with a smile so polished it cut like glass. "Well," she said sweetly, "I suppose she deserves to know why you pushed so hard for her to resign." The room stiffened. Evan shot her a warning glare. "Lorelei, not here." "Why not here?" Lorelei laughed softly. "This was her office. Seems appropriate." Madeline clenched her jaw. "Evan, what is she talking about?" Her husband ran a trembling hand through his hair. "Maddie, it's not what it looks like. She's twisting things." "Oh, am I?" Lorelei stepped closer, her heels clicking like tiny hammers against the floor. "You told me yourself. You couldn't climb the ladder with your wife overshadowing you. A man aiming for senior VP needs a partner who can make space, not take it." Madeline felt something inside her crack, sharp, metallic, irreversible. Evan had once begged her to quit, telling her they'd build a future together, that he needed her, that family mattered more than titles. Lorelei smiled wider, sensing the break. "And you didn't tell her how you recommended me months before she left? Or how you helped remove her name from the Atlas project so my promotion wouldn't raise questions?" A gasp rippled through the room. Even employees who pretended not to listen were now staring openly. Madeline stepped back, her breath trembling. "Evan, tell me she's lying." But Evan couldn't speak, not a word. The silence was louder than any confession. Madeline's vision blurred, not with tears but with clarity. A cold, devastating clarity that rewrote the last year of her life. She set the box down on a nearby desk. "I left my job for you," she whispered. "For us." Evan reached for her. "Maddie, please." She stepped away. Lorelei's voice sliced through the tension. "Well, Evan, should I tell her the rest? Or do you want the honor?" Madeline's heart stopped, because everyone could feel it. There was something even worse she didn't know yet. Lorelei's smile sharpened, cruel and theatrical, as if she had been waiting for this moment. The entire floor had gone silent. Even the hum of the AC felt like it held its breath. "Fine," she said, brushing a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. I'll say it. Evan stiffened. Lorelei, don't. Oh, relax, she waved him off. Madeline deserves to know that you weren't the only one replaced. Madeline's voice barely carried. What does that mean? Lorelei leaned against the doorway of Madeline's former office, crossing her arms like she owned every inch of the space. Beacon Tech didn't just hire me to take over your role. They reviewed your entire performance history. She paused for dramatic effect. And Evan recommended your removal long before you resigned. A stunned murmur rippled through the employees. Madeline blinked slowly, feeling the floor tilt beneath her. Removed? From what? Lorelei grinned. From the Atlas project. The one you built. The one that's about to secure a multi-million-dollar partnership with Axiom Systems. She lifted a printed document from the desk like a trophy. Your name isn't on it anymore. It's been reassigned to me. Madeline swallowed hard. Her throat burned. Evan, you promised the project would still have my credit. Evan's voice cracked. I didn't have a choice. The board wanted someone active. Someone, Lorelei finished, who didn't walk away to play house in New Jersey. The words sliced deeper than any betrayal. Madeline had given up late nights, holidays, weekends, everything to build Atlas. She had believed Evan when he said quitting was temporary, that he needed her at home so he could focus, so they could grow as a family. Lorelei stepped closer, lowering her voice to a venomous whisper. He even gave me your old strategy drafts, said they were a good starting point. Madeline's chest tightened. Her hands trembled. Every lie Evan ever told snapped into place like a puzzle she never wanted to see complete. Evan reached out again, desperate. Maddie, I swear, I thought... She flinched away. For the first time, Madeline looked directly into Lorelei's eyes and saw the truth. This wasn't betrayal born of passion. It was betrayal born of ambition. Lorelei smirked. Ready for the final part, sweetheart? Madeline exhaled shakily. Go ahead. Lorelei's smile widened. You weren't the only woman Evan replaced. You were just the first. For a moment, Madeline couldn't hear anything. Not the murmurs spreading across the office, not the clicking keyboards, not even the pounding of her own heart. Lorelei's words echoed like a gunshot inside her skull. You weren't the only woman Evan replaced. You were just the first. Her breath hitched. What does that mean? Evan's face drained of color. Lorelei, enough. But Lorelei wasn't finished. She was savoring this. Oh, come on, she said, circling Madeline like a shark tasting blood in the water. Do you really think he only replaced you at work? Sweetheart, you left the company, but he started replacing you long before that. Madeline felt her stomach twist. Speak plainly. Lorelei lifted her phone, scrolling with calculated cruelty. He dated another colleague before me, a junior analyst, cute, quiet, eager to please. Her name was Danielle. She smirked. He told me she was a practice run before he aimed higher. A collective gasp rippled across the floor. Madeline's knees weakened. Evan squeezed his eyes shut, as if bracing for impact. Maddie, I was stupid. It was before you quit your job. You didn't think I'd find out? Madeline whispered. Her voice cracked like thin ice under too much weight. Lorelei stepped closer until their faces were inches apart. He said you were holding him back, that everyone saw your potential but you didn't, that he needed someone, hungrier. Madeline staggered backward, nearly bumping into a desk. Employees pretended to look away, but no one moved. No one breathed. Evan tried again, desperate. Maddie, listen to me. I was trying to protect us. Protect my future, our future. Our? Madeline's voice rose, raw and trembling. You erased me from my project. You erased me from my own office. And now I find out you erased me from our marriage too? Evan swallowed hard. I can fix this. No, Madeline said softly. You can't. The fluorescent lights flickered above her, casting a harsh glow on the messy truth unraveling at her feet. She picked up the box she'd brought, her hands steadier now. Lorelei cocked her head. Running home already? Madeline met her eyes, hollow but burning. No, I'm done running. She turned toward the elevator, but before she reached it, someone stepped into her path. Jonathan Pierce, watching everything, ready to speak. Jonathan Pierce wasn't supposed to be there, not in that moment, not in that chaos, not when Madeline's entire world was collapsing around her. Yet he stood silently between her and the elevator, tall, composed, and watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Not pity, not shock, something steadier, sharper. "Madeline," he said quietly, "you don't have to leave like this." His voice carried just enough weight to make the whole floor pause. Evan stiffened. Lorelei crossed her arms, clearly irritated that the spotlight had shifted. Madeline swallowed hard. "Jonathan, this isn't your business." "Actually," he replied, eyes flicking briefly toward Evan, "it is." A ripple moved across the room. Jonathan wasn't just some random employee. He was a high-level consultant, one the board respected. His words carried power. Evan stepped forward, jaw tight. "Jonathan, with all due respect, this is between my wife and me." Jonathan didn't blink. "Your wife? The one you undermined, replaced, erased?" His voice remained calm, but it sliced through the tension like a blade. "I've reviewed the Atlas Project documentation. I know exactly whose work was stolen." Gasps echoed across the office. Madeline's breath caught. "You... what?" Jonathan exhaled slowly, almost regretfully. "I recognized your writing style months ago. Then your resignation came through. And suddenly, Lorelei's New Strategies appeared, word for word identical to drafts I saw from you years back." Lorelei's smirk faltered. Evan's face drained of color. "You're overstepping." "No," Jonathan said simply. "Someone had to." The floor felt like it tilted. Madeline gripped the box tighter, her mind reeling. "Why didn't you say anything?" Jonathan's eyes softened. "Because I thought you knew. I didn't realize you were blindsided." Madeline's chest ached with humiliation, raw, burning, suffocating. Yet beneath the shame, something sparked, a tiny ember of dignity refusing to die. Lorelei scoffed, stepping forward. "Jonathan, you don't understand." "Evan and I," Jonathan held up a hand. "I understand betrayal very well, Lorelei. Some of us just don't weaponize it." Murmurs erupted. Madeline felt dozens of eyes on her, some sympathetic, some scandal-hungry, some silently cheering for drama they'd gossip about later. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to scream. She wanted to reclaim the woman she used to be before all of this. Jonathan took a slow breath. "Madeline, you deserve to know everything, but not here, not while they get to control the narrative." Behind her, Evan's voice cracked. "Maddie, don't go with him." Madeline turned, finally steady. "Why? You never stood with me." Madeline didn't remember stepping into the elevator. Only the cold touch of the stainless steel doors sliding shut behind her, and the echo of Evan's voice shouting her name as it disappeared. Her hands trembled violently around the cardboard box, the edges digging into her palms. It felt like she was holding the shattered pieces of her life. The elevator mirrors reflected a woman she barely recognized. Pale, stunned, eyes glossy with humiliation she refused to let fall. The doors opened on the lobby with a soft chime that felt sickeningly cheerful. She stepped out. Manhattan's skyline glared through the floor-to-ceiling windows, bright, alive, indifferent. People rushed past her, interns with iced lattes, executives checking their Rolex watches, the constant rhythm of a city that didn't have time for heartbreak. Madeline made it to a quiet corner of the lobby, near a marble pillar, before her legs buckled. She sank onto a bench, pressing a hand to her mouth to stifle a sob threatening to escape. Everything hurt. Her marriage, her career, her dignity. Everything had been ripped from her within minutes, dragged into public view, exposed under fluorescent lights for an audience of coworkers who would replay the scene for weeks. Her phone buzzed. Evan. "Maddie, please wait." Another buzz. Evan. "Don't talk to Jonathan. He's manipulating this." Then another. Lorelei. "Hope there are no hard feelings. Business is business." A winking emoji followed. Madeline's stomach twisted. The woman had destroyed her career and still had the audacity to send emojis. She shoved the phone into her bag, swallowing down the rising wave of panic. The lobby felt too bright, too open. She needed air. When she pushed through the revolving doors, the city's summer heat slapped her in the face. Car horns blared. A food truck hissed steam. A taxi splashed through a puddle, spraying her shoes. It was the kind of moment that would break anyone. She steadied herself against the stone wall, breath unsteady. How did I become this? How did I let them strip everything from me? Her vision blurred, but she blinked the tears away. Crying wouldn't fix this. Crawling home wouldn't fix this. And then, a shadow fell across her. Jonathan stood beside her, holding out a bottle of cold water, expression calm but firm. "Madeline, don't let them write your story." She looked up, broken, but something inside her flickered, because this was the first moment someone seemed willing to stand with her. Madeline didn't take the water at first. Her hands were still shaking, her breath still uneven, her mind still trapped inside the humiliation she had endured upstairs. But Jonathan didn't push. He simply stood beside her, offering quiet stability in a moment when the world felt violently unstable. "Why are you helping me?" she finally whispered, her voice raw. Jonathan glanced toward the glass tower rising behind them. "Because I've seen Beacon Tech bury people who didn't deserve it, and because you're not the first they tried to erase." Madeline frowned. "What does that mean?" Jonathan hesitated, as if choosing how much truth she could handle in this fragile moment. "Lorelei isn't just ambitious, she's connected. Her uncle sits on the board. That's how she bypassed half the hiring protocols. And Evan, well, he was desperate for a promotion. They found each other at the perfect time." Another blow, another bruise. Madeline pressed a hand to her chest, trying to keep from breaking again. "So, I never had a chance." "Not once they targeted you," Jonathan said gently. "And the worst part? They've been planning this since last year." Madeline inhaled sharply. "Last year? I was still working then. I still trusted Evan then." Jonathan nodded slowly. Exactly why it worked. The world tilted again. Her pain wasn't just recent. It had been growing roots behind her back. She closed her eyes, steadying her breath. "Jonathan, how do you know all this?" His jaw tightened. "Because they did something similar to my former COO. Different strategy, same fingerprints, same ambition disguised as policy." For the first time, Madeline saw something deeper in his eyes. Experience, loss, fury sharpened by time. "Why tell me now?" she whispered. "Because if you walk away today believing you were inadequate, they win." Jonathan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "And because I've gone through this before, I know exactly what they'll try next." Madeline looked up, fear flickering. "What will they try?" Jonathan's expression darkened. "They'll destroy your credibility before you even think about fighting back." Her breath caught. "I don't have the strength for a war." Jonathan shook his head. "You don't need strength yet. You just need truth." She swallowed. "And you have it?" "I do," he said quietly. "And you're going to want to see everything." Madeline's heart raced. Jonathan opened his briefcase, slowly, deliberately. Inside was a folder with her name on it, a folder Beacon Tech never meant for her to see. Jonathan held the folder as if it were a live wire, dangerous, humming with truth. Madeline stared at her name printed neatly across the tab. M. Brooks. Internal review. Her stomach twisted. "Beacon Tech keeps files like this?" "Only for employees they plan to remove," Jonathan said quietly. A chill crawled up her arms. He handed it to her slowly, giving her time to brace herself. But nothing could prepare her for what she saw. The first page wasn't a review. It was a plan. A structured, month-by-month breakdown. Redirect project credit. Limit access to strategic meetings. Reassign internal contacts. Frame departure as voluntary. Her breath caught. This is a termination strategy." Jonathan nodded. "They mapped it out a year before you resigned." Madeline flipped to the next page and froze. There were emails, dozens. Between executives, between Lorelei and HR, between Evan and the board liaison. Evan's words stared back at her in black ink. "Madeline lacks long-term leadership potential. She performs best when guided. Her emotional instability is becoming a liability. Recommendation: transition her out before Atlas launches." Madeline pressed a shaking hand over her mouth. "He said I was unstable?" "They needed a narrative," Jonathan said softly. "Men like Evan always do." Another page, another knife. A screenshot of a Slack thread. Lorelei joking about taking over the Queen's office. An HR rep replying with, "She won't last long once she steps back for him." Madeline shut her eyes, pain slicing through her chest. They hadn't just replaced her, they had orchestrated her downfall. She whispered, "I gave Evan everything. I trusted him with everything." Jonathan crouched slightly so he was eye level with her. His tone softened, careful but steady. Madeline, this wasn't your failure. It was their fear. You were better than they expected, and that scared them. She shook her head, tears burning but refusing to fall. I walked right into their trap. No, Jonathan corrected gently. They pushed you into it. Her fingers tightened around the folder until the paper crinkled. Anger, pure, unfamiliar, electric, rose beneath her grief. Jonathan watched the shift in her posture. There's more. Madeline looked up, breath trembling. More? Jonathan closed the briefcase with a quiet click. This is only the surface. The real reason they targeted you. It's deeper and far worse. Madeline's pulse pounded. Jonathan, just tell me. He exhaled. They didn't remove you for Evan. They removed you because you were the one person who could expose what Lorelei was doing. Madeline stared at Jonathan, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Expose? What exactly? Jonathan looked around to make sure no one was close enough to hear. Then he lowered his voice, each word precise, heavy. Lorelei wasn't promoted because she was talented, he said. She was promoted because she was covering up a financial leak, one that started the moment she joined Beacon Tech. Madeline blinked. A leak? Jonathan nodded. A hidden diversion of project funds. Small amounts at first. Easy to overlook, but over time, hundreds of thousands. Money routed through shell vendors connected to her uncle. Madeline's mouth went dry. That's criminal. Yes, Jonathan said. And you, without even knowing it, got close to uncovering it. Her breath caught. When? When you flagged those discrepancies in quarterly expenses. Jonathan's expression tightened. Do you remember how Evan dismissed it? Told you it was nothing? Madeline felt the memory hit her like a punch. Late nights reviewing expense sheets, finding numbers that didn't add up. Evan brushing her off with a kiss on the forehead, saying she was overthinking again. Oh my God, she whispered. I was right, Jonathan continued, voice steady. The moment Lorelei realized you had the skill set to trace the money trail, she panicked. She went to her uncle, and they decided you needed to be removed before you connected the dots. Madeline felt the sidewalk tilt under her feet. So Evan didn't push me out to focus on us. He pushed me out because they asked him to. He was promised a promotion, Jonathan confirmed. Removal of conflict, clean narrative, clear path upward, if he delivered your resignation. Madeline's throat tightened. He sold me out for a title. Jonathan's gaze softened. No, he sold you out for an illusion of power. Madeline pressed her hand against her chest, breath trembling. The betrayal she thought she understood now spiraled into something deeper, darker. This wasn't infidelity. This wasn't ambition. This was conspiracy. They destroyed my career to save themselves, she whispered. Exactly. Jonathan paused. And now that you know the truth, you need to decide something very important. Madeline lifted her eyes. Decide what? Jonathan took a step closer. Whether you want justice, or if you want revenge. Her heart pounded. For the first time, she didn't feel weak. She felt dangerous. The city roared around Madeline as she stood on the corner of Fifth Avenue, the folder clutched against her chest like a fragile heartbeat. Taxi horns, designer shopping bags, the distant wail of a siren. Manhattan moved on, indifferent to the woman whose life had just been ripped open. Jonathan stayed a few steps behind her, giving her space but refusing to leave. Madeline, he said gently, just breathe. But breathing felt impossible. She had survived betrayal, humiliation, replacement. But this knowledge that she had been targeted, plotted against, erased by design, was heavier than all of it combined. Her legs finally gave out, and she sank onto a bench outside a luxury storefront. Behind her, a massive advertisement glowed. A confident businesswoman staring forward, fearless. Madeline couldn't look at it. It felt like mockery. I gave everything to that company, she whispered. Late nights, weekends. I built Atlas from scratch, and they erased me like I was a typo. Jonathan sat beside her, not touching, but close enough that she felt anchored. They didn't erase you. They erased your credit. There's a difference. It feels the same. No, he said quietly, because one can be rebuilt. Madeline shut her eyes, fighting tears. I'm tired, Jonathan. I'm so tired of fighting for people who never fought for me. The words cracked. Her voice broke with them. For a moment, she looked small, fragile in a way she had never allowed herself to be. And maybe that vulnerability, laid bare under the sunlight of Fifth Avenue, was the turning point she didn't know she needed. Jonathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. They want you broken. They want you ashamed. It makes it easier for them to bury what they did. Madeline swallowed. So what do I do? You stand up, Jonathan said. Not for Evan, not for them. For you. She looked at him then, really looked. His eyes held no pity, only truth, only fire. You have evidence, he continued. You have motive, and you have the intelligence they were afraid of. He paused, letting the words settle. But you need one more thing. Madeline wiped her cheek. What's that? Jonathan's jaw set. Courage to step back into the arena they pushed you out of. Her heart thumped. A beat, a breath. Slowly she straightened her spine. And for the first time all day, she didn't feel defeated. She felt awakening. That night, Madeline sat alone at her kitchen table, the folder Jonathan had given her spread out like the ruins of a life she once believed in. Pages rustled under the soft hum of the refrigerator. Every document, every email, every falsified narrative felt like a stab, reopening fresh wounds. But for the first time, she didn't look away. Her old MacBook Pro sat in front of her, dusty from months of neglect. She opened it slowly, like reviving a part of herself she had abandoned. The screen glowed to life, illuminating the exhaustion on her face. Yet beneath that exhaustion lay something unmistakable: resolve. She began reviewing her old notes, strategies, drafts, breadcrumbs of the brilliant woman she used to be. Every line reminded her, I wasn't unqualified, I wasn't unstable, I was a threat. A notification pinged. Jonathan, if you're ready tomorrow, we can talk options. You have more leverage than you think. Madeline's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Options. Leverage. Words she hadn't felt entitled to in months. She typed back, tomorrow, noon. A soft knock came from the hallway. Evan stood at the doorway, still in his Beacon Tech suit, his face a storm of guilt, panic, and desperation. Maddie, he whispered, we need to talk. She didn't look up. About which part? The lies? The project? Or the affairs you forgot to mention? Evan swallowed hard. I messed up. I know I did. But you walking out today, everyone saw. It could affect my position. There it was. The truth he didn't mean to say. Not our marriage. Not your pain. Not I hurt you. But my position. Madeline leaned back slowly. That's what you're worried about? No, Evan stepped inside. I want us to fix things. She studied him. Not with love, but with clarity. Evan wasn't here because he loved her. He was here because losing her meant losing the shield she once provided. You didn't come to fix us, she said quietly. You came to save yourself. Evan's jaw tightened. Maddie, you don't understand how things work in that company. Madeline stood. I understand perfectly. You chose them. Now live with them. Evan reached out, but she stepped back. For the first time, she wasn't the one chasing. She was the one walking away. And unlike before, this time she wasn't leaving to make him comfortable. She was leaving to rebuild herself. The next morning, sunlight cut through the blinds in sharp lines, illuminating the living room like a stage waiting for its first performer. Madeline stood in front of the mirror, hair mussed, eyes tired, but posture steady. She hardly recognized the woman staring back. Maybe that was the point. She tied her hair into a low ponytail, slipped into a crisp blouse she hadn't worn since her corporate days, and opened her MacBook Pro. The familiar click of the keys grounded her. For months, she had abandoned this part of herself, the strategist, the builder, the woman who turned chaos into clarity. But now, she needed every fragment of that old power. She began rebuilding her resume, not the watered-down version Evan convinced her to write, but the truth. Lead strategist of Atlas, operational architect, efficiency specialist. She added metrics, impact statements, tangible proof. And with every line she typed, her shoulders straightened. At noon, she met Jonathan at a quiet corner table in a Manhattan cafe, the kind with exposed brick walls and soft jazz humming in the background. He looked up from his laptop when she approached, giving her a small, approving nod. You look different, he said. Madeline raised an eyebrow. Good different or bad different? Like someone who finally remembered who she is. She exhaled, letting the words settle warmly. Jonathan slid a document across the table. I spoke with a colleague in Beverly Hills. Their strategy division is expanding. They want to meet you. Madeline blinked. Me? After everything that's happened? Because of everything that's happened, Jonathan corrected. Companies don't want obedient. They want resilient, and you're proving resilience in real time. Her chest tightened, not with pain, but with something unfamiliar. Hope. Jonathan continued. We'll prepare you. Portfolio, narrative, positioning. And when the time is right, we'll present the evidence against Beacon Tech, ethically, strategically, and publicly. Madeline hesitated. Won't that destroy Evan's career? Jonathan tilted his head. He destroyed yours. Accountability isn't cruelty. She swallowed hard. He was right. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. Another message from Evan. We need to talk. Things are happening at work. I need you. Madeline set the phone down slowly. I think, she said, voice steady, I'm finally done being needed for the wrong reasons. Jonathan smiled, a real smile. Good, because now, it's time to choose who you become. Evan Hale had always been the man who strutted through Beacon Tech's glass corridors with unshakable confidence. But today, that confidence cracked. Badly. He burst into his office, slamming the door hard enough that the blinds rattled. His phone buzzed non-stop. Emails, Slack messages, urgent meeting requests. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Two executives avoided eye contact as they passed by his window. Another whispered something into a colleague's ear, shooting Evan a glance filled with thinly veiled discomfort. He loosened his tie, pacing. What the hell is happening? His assistant appeared in the doorway, pale. Sir, the board is requesting your presence in Conference Room A, immediately. Conference Room A, the room used only for crisis meetings and disciplinary hearings. Evan's stomach dropped. When he entered, half the board was already seated. Lorelei sat at the end of the table, arms crossed tightly, eyes darting, a far cry from the smug confidence she displayed earlier. The chairman spoke first. Mr. Hale, we have concerns regarding recent anomalies found in project financials. Lorelei stiffened. Evan froze. Financials? That's accounting's jurisdiction. Not according to the documents we received this morning, another board member said, sliding a report toward him. Evan scanned the pages, transaction trails, shell vendors, inconsistent invoices, all linked directly to teams under Lorelei. His palms sweat. This isn't mine. I didn't authorize any of this. Lorelei suddenly stood. You said you'd handle it. You said... Evan cut her off. I said I'd cover for you as long as it didn't explode. The board exchanged glances, exactly the reaction Lorelei feared. You two colluded? The chairman asked sharply. No, Evan insisted. She's twisting. Lorelei pointed a shaking finger at Evan. He's lying. He knew everything. He approved it. Evan's breath hitched. What? I did not. But the damage was done. The board saw a partnership, a scandal, a liability. Mr. Hale, the chairman said sternly, pending investigation, your leadership privileges will be temporarily suspended. Evan's world crashed. Suspended. The word echoed like a verdict. Lorelei's face drained. This wasn't the outcome she expected. Evan gripped the table, knuckles white. You can't do this. I've given everything to this company. A board member replied coldly, everything, except transparency. Evan stumbled out of the room, panic clawing at his throat. His phone buzzed again. Madeline hadn't replied. For the first time, Evan realized she might never come back to save him. 2 days later, Madeline walked into the Beverly Hills office building Jonathan had arranged for her to visit, a sleek glass tower overlooking the sun-soaked skyline. The lobby was warm, modern, alive with energy, nothing like the cold steel atmosphere of Beacon Tech. It felt like stepping into a world she had forgotten she deserved. She smoothed her blouse, inhaled deeply, and approached the reception desk. Madeline Brooks, I'm here for the strategy division interview. The receptionist smiled warmly. They've been expecting you. Her heart fluttered, not with fear but something sharper, anticipation. Moments later, she was guided into a boardroom where 3 executives sat studying her resume. Real recognition sparked in their eyes. Finally, people who saw her work for what it truly was. The division head, A poised woman named Helena Drake leaned forward. Your experience with Atlas is exceptional. We've been following that project for months. Madeline nodded, steady. Thank you. It was the most challenging and rewarding work I've done. Helena smiled. We suspected as much, considering Beacon Tech's sudden secrecy around it. Madeline chose her next words carefully. Transparency was not their priority. Helena exchanged a knowing glance with her colleagues. Ours is, and we're impressed, not only with your achievements, but with the way you handled recent obstacles. Madeline blinked. You know? Jonathan, seated quietly in the corner, finally spoke. They're considering you because you rose even when they tried to bury you. Madeline's chest tightened, but this time with pride. Helena slid a folder toward her. This is a formal offer. Chief Strategy Consultant, with transition to department lead pending performance. Compensation is 3 times your last salary. Madeline stared, speechless. The room blurred softly, not from pain but relief. You don't have to answer now, Helena added, but we would be fortunate to have you. Madeline finally found her voice. Thank you, truly. As she stepped out of the building afterward, Jonathan walked beside her. How do you feel? Madeline looked out over the palm-lined street, sunlight warming her face. Like someone I haven't been in a long time, she whispered. Someone capable. Someone wanted. Jonathan smiled gently. That's good. Hold on to that. Her phone buzzed then. Evan. Emergency. I need you. Please call. Madeline exhaled, not with fear but clarity. For once, her future didn't orbit him, and she wasn't turning back. Evan Hale had never felt desperation like this. Suspended from his role, his credibility dissolving, and whispers circulating through the Beacon Tech hallways like wildfire, he was no longer the confident man who once strutted these floors. He was a cornered animal, and cornered animals lash out. He stormed into Lorelei's temporary office, slamming the door behind him. What did you tell the board? They're pinning everything on me. Lorelei looked up, mascara smudged, hands trembling around a half-finished latte. I didn't tell them anything. They found the financial trail somehow. Someone tipped them off. Evan froze. A cold dread sank into his spine. Madeline, he whispered. Lorelei scoffed. Please, she's too soft to fight back. Evan shook his head, panic rising. You don't know her. If someone gave her evidence, she wouldn't stay quiet. Lorelei's expression shifted, fear creeping in. If she exposes us, my uncle can't protect me, or you. We need to get ahead of this, Evan muttered. We need to... Lorelei cut him off, eyes widening. What if we make her look unstable again, like last time? The board ate it up. Her emotional fragility, her stress issues. Evan hesitated, then nodded slowly. Shame flickered across his face, but survival instinct smothered it. Together, they crafted a plan. A whisper campaign. Anonymous emails to executives. Rumors that Madeline had suffered a breakdown after leaving the company. Claims she was vengeful, obsessed, stalking leadership. Lorelei typed rapidly, venom dripping from every invented detail. We'll say she threatened you, that she manipulated data. They'll never hire her anywhere. Evan swallowed. Just make it believable. Oh, trust me, she said. I know exactly how to destroy a woman's reputation. Within hours, the smear campaign was circulating inside Beacon Tech. Cold, calculated, effective. Evan exhaled in relief, believing he had bought himself time. But what neither of them knew, Jonathan had already obtained copies of their secret messages. The board had already begun tracing the financial leak back to Lorelei's uncle. And Madeline, far from collapsing, was preparing her own strike. That night, Evan checked his inbox and saw the first sign of doom. Board notice. Mandatory hearing. Evidence review tomorrow at 9 a.m. His blood ran cold. Lorelei read the same message and whispered, "What evidence?" Evan didn't answer, because deep down, he knew. Madeline wasn't the one who should be afraid anymore. Madeline sat across from Jonathan in a quiet conference room at his West Coast office, the Los Angeles skyline glowing through the window. She had expected fear, dread, maybe even hesitation, but what she felt instead was focus. Pure, strategic focus. Jonathan slid a USB drive across the table. Everything you need is on here. Emails between Evan and Lorelei, expense redirections, time-stamped approvals, screenshots, even the falsified narratives they wrote about you. Madeline turned the small device between her fingers, feeling its weight. This is enough to take them down. It's more than enough, Jonathan said. And tomorrow's hearing will be your moment. She exhaled slowly. If I walk into that building, it'll be the first time since they humiliated me. Then walk in as someone they can't humiliate. Madeline looked up, meeting his steady gaze. Jonathan wasn't just helping her. He was investing in her strength, her intelligence, her future. What's the plan? She asked. Jonathan leaned forward. We let them speak first. Evan and Lorelei will try to spin their story. They'll trip over their lies. And when they do, he tapped the USB. You'll reveal the truth. Madeline nodded, determination sharpening every line of her face. But Jonathan wasn't finished. After the board hearing, we'll file a formal report with federal auditors. Financial misconduct, internal manipulation, conflict of interest. Lorelei's uncle won't escape this either. Madeline blinked. You're going after the entire network? Jonathan's response was calm, almost gentle. They went after you as a network. Fair is fair. A beat of silence passed before Madeline asked softly, Why are you helping me this much? Jonathan hesitated, only a second. Because I've watched people like them win too many times. Because you didn't deserve any of this, and because... He paused. You're not done yet. Madeline's chest tightened, not with pain, but with a strange, warm sense of being truly seen. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. A new anonymous message. If you show up tomorrow, we'll release everything about your emotional instability. Stay away. Madeline's jaw tightened. She handed the phone to Jonathan. He smirked. They're panicking. No, Madeline said, rising to her feet. They're losing. She lifted the USB, eyes burning with purpose. Tomorrow, I take back everything they stole. The next morning, Beacon Tech's top floor buzzed like a disturbed beehive. Executives whispered in tight circles. Assistants rushed back and forth with anxious eyes. The tension was thick, electric, and unmistakable. Lorelei West strutted into the boardroom, wearing a crisp white suit and a smile sharper than glass, determined to reclaim control. But beneath her polished exterior, panic flickered. She had not slept. She had not eaten. She had spent the entire night rewriting their narrative, convinced she could still spin the story in her favor. When she took her seat, the board members didn't greet her. Not one. A flicker of fear crawled up her spine. Then Evan arrived, pale, sweating, clutching a folder like a lifeline. He sat far from her, didn't look at her, didn't acknowledge her. She whispered urgently, We stick to the story, right? He didn't answer. Before she could press further, the door opened. Madeline Brooks stepped inside. The room shifted. She wasn't the shattered woman from days ago. She wore a sleek black blazer, hair pulled into a clean twist, posture steady, eyes sharp. The USB drive Jonathan had given her sat in her hand like a quiet blade. Lorelei's jaw tightened. Why is she here? The chairman's expression was ice. Because she requested a formal statement hearing, and given recent evidence, we granted it. Lorelei felt something inside her fracture. Evidence? She repeated, voice cracking slightly. Madeline sat across from her, calm, steady, devastating. Yes, Lorelei, evidence. The chairman nodded to Madeline. You may begin. Madeline slid the USB across the table. Jonathan, seated in the observer section, watched closely as the board plugged it into the main display. And then, everything erupted onto the screen. Screenshots of Lorelei's financial diversions, emails coordinating fake vendors, messages between her and Evan discussing how to push Madeline out, HR instructions to rewrite her reputation, Slack threads mocking her emotional fragility. Lorelei's face drained of all color. That's taken out of context, she choked. This is a setup. Enough, the chairman snapped. Your uncle's involvement is undeniable, and your misconduct has jeopardized millions. Her uncle, her protector, sat at the far end of the table, stone-faced with shame. Lorelei West, he said quietly, you are suspended effective immediately. Legal review begins today. Lorelei staggered back. No, you promised. I promised nothing, he said. You've embarrassed this company and this family. Her world collapsed. She reached for Evan, but he recoiled. Madeline watched silently, her expression unreadable. Lorelei's voice broke into a whisper. What happens to me now? The chairman answered coldly. Consequences. If Lorelei's collapse shook the room, Evan's turn shattered it. The moment the board finished reviewing her misconduct, a second set of files appeared on the screen. Time-stamped emails, internal approvals, and messages with Evan's name all over them. The air thickened as executives shifted uncomfortably, realizing his involvement was far deeper than they'd assumed. Evan stood abruptly, voice cracking. Hold on, this isn't fair. I didn't authorize any of this. The chairman raised a hand. Sit down, Mr. Hale. Evan didn't. He was unraveling. Lorelei dragged me into this. I thought they were normal vendor expenses. Lorelei let out a hollow laugh. Oh, now I dragged you? Evan, you begged me to help you get promoted. You were willing to bury your wife to do it. Gasps spread through the room. Evan's face blanched. That's not true. Madeline spoke for the first time since exposing Lorelei. Her voice was soft, but carried through the boardroom like a blade wrapped in silk. Evan, you wrote that I was emotionally unstable. You told HR I was a threat to team morale. You erased my credit from Atlas. You called me unreliable because I trusted you enough to step back. Evan's eyes snapped toward her, desperate. Maddie, I was under pressure. No, Madeline said calmly. You were under ambition. The room fell silent. Jonathan, observing quietly from the back, leaned forward, watching Evan crumble. The chairman turned a page in the packet. Mr. Hale, evidence shows you approved at least 9 fraudulent transfers. Whether knowingly or through negligence, the consequence is the same. Evan's breath came in shallow bursts. You can't fire me over this. I've been loyal for 10 years. A board member replied sharply. Loyal? You helped orchestrate the removal of your own wife. Evan froze. That sentence, cold, factual, tore through whatever excuses he had left. His voice trembled. Madeline, say something. Tell them I'm not the villain here. Madeline looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time without love, without heartbreak, without confusion. Just clarity. I can't protect you from the consequences you chose, she said softly. Evan swayed, his world falling apart. Maddie, please, I need you. Madeline stepped back. For once, she whispered, you'll have to stand on your own. The chairman delivered the final blow. Effective immediately, Evan Hale is terminated from Beacon Tech and referred for legal investigation. Evan collapsed into his chair, defeated. His ambition had cost him everything. And Madeline never felt stronger. The boardroom emptied slowly after Evan's termination, leaving only echoes of betrayal, of justice, of a chapter finally closing. Madeline stepped out into the hallway, her pulse steady for the first time in months. She expected to feel hollow, or shaken, or guilty. Instead, she felt light. A weight she'd carried so long, she'd forgotten it existed had finally lifted. Jonathan approached her quietly, hands in his pockets, eyes warm. You handled yourself with more dignity than any of them deserved. Madeline exhaled. I thought I'd feel vindictive, angry, something dramatic. She paused, surprised at her own calm. But what I really feel is free. Jonathan smiled. Freedom is often louder than revenge. As they walked toward the elevator, employees, some hesitant, some boldly, nodded at her. A few whispered, good for her. Others offered soft smiles. Not pity, respect. When the elevator doors opened, Jonathan stepped aside, letting her enter first. You know, he said lightly, companies will be lining up once word spreads. Madeline lifted an eyebrow. Why's that? Jonathan grinned in that quiet, confident way of his. Because integrity is rare, because courage is rarer, and because you just proved you can withstand a storm that would have crushed most executives. The doors closed, enclosing them in soft golden light. Madeline looked down at her reflection in the metal panel. This version of herself wasn't broken or lost. She was rebuilt, sharper, braver. When they reached the lobby, Jonathan gently touched her elbow, guiding her through the revolving doors into the warm afternoon. The city sounded different now, less chaotic, more alive, as if the world had widened again, finally making room for her. I don't know what comes next, she admitted, but I know it won't be dictated by anyone else anymore." Jonathan nodded slowly. "Good. And whatever path you choose, you won't be walking it alone." Her breath caught, not out of fear but something softer, something new. They crossed the street together, sunlight stretching long shadows behind them. Madeline felt the warmth on her shoulders and realized this wasn't just an ending. It was the beginning of the life she should have always had. Her phone buzzed, a message from Beverly Hills HQ. "We'd like to move forward. Call when you're ready." Madeline slipped her phone away, smiling. For the first time, she was ready for everything. 3 months later, the world looked nothing like the one Madeline had once cried her way through. She stood on the balcony of her new Beverly Hills apartment, sunlight painting gold across the skyline. A soft breeze brushed against her hair, carrying the quiet hum of a city full of possibility. No bitterness, no fear, no ghosts from Beacon Tech, just peace. Behind her, a stack of finalized documents sat on her dining table. Her permanent contract as chief strategy consultant, with transition to department head already in motion. Her work was respected now, celebrated. Her name wasn't erased from projects, it led them. Justice had come in waves. Lauralee faced federal investigation for financial fraud. Her uncle resigned from the board in disgrace. Evan, once untouchable, was blacklisted across the industry. Every consequence had found its owner. Madeline didn't celebrate their destruction. She celebrated her freedom. The sliding door opened behind her. Jonathan stepped onto the balcony, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. "You were up early," he said with a soft smile. "Just thinking," she replied, accepting the mug. "About how different life is now." Jonathan leaned beside her on the railing. "Different can be good." "It is," she said quietly. "I didn't think I'd ever feel whole again." "You rebuilt yourself," he said, "piece by piece. They didn't get the final word, you did." Madeline looked at him, warmth blooming in her chest. Over the past months, his presence had become steady, comforting, something she could trust without question. He never rushed her, never pushed her, only walked beside her as she reclaimed her life. He set his mug down and reached for her hand, his touch gentle. "I know you're focused on your new beginning, but if someday you want something more..." Madeline squeezed his hand. "I think," she said softly, "for the first time in a long while, I'm open to more." Jonathan's smile deepened, quiet, grateful, hopeful. They stood together as the city brightened, a silent promise forming between them. A future built not from survival, but choice. Not from sacrifice, but respect. Madeline exhaled, letting go of every last thread of the life she had left behind. "I never needed a man to save me," she said. "I just needed to stop saving the wrong one." Jonathan brushed his thumb across her hand. "And now?" he asked. Madeline smiled at the horizon. "Now I live the life they tried to take." So, our story comes to an end. And if you're still here with us until this very moment, my friend, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Maybe it whispered a truth you once forgot. Or maybe it simply told you that you are not alone. Madeline's story teaches us something timeless. People may try to erase you, betray you, underestimate you, but they cannot decide your worth. As Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When life breaks you, it is often preparing you to rise rebuilt and unshakable. If her journey moved you, even a little, I hope you carry this with you. Your past does not define you. Your pain does not own you. And your comeback can begin today, right now, with one small decision to honor yourself. And hey, if you felt something tonight, don't leave quietly. Like the video, share it with someone who might need a reminder of their own strength, and subscribe, so we can keep walking through these stories, together. You matter, your story matters, and we're right here with you. This story is a work of fiction, created purely for entertainment and emotional reflection. Any resemblance to real people, companies, or events is entirely coincidental. The situations, characters, and dialogue are dramatized to explore deeper themes of resilience, personal growth, and healing. Our goal is not to represent any actual workplace, relationship, or legal process, but to offer viewers a narrative that encourages self-awareness and inner strength. Please remember that every person's real-life circumstances are unique, and no part of this story should be taken as factual advice or a depiction of real individuals. Thank you for watching responsibly and supporting creative storytelling on this channel.